Okay. And I know this is a ritual for us, but if you could just type on the chat that you can see me and you can hear me well, that'd be great. How do I open the chat for me to see here? Yes, thank you, Karen. Okay, great. Okay, perfect, Amanda. I invited like Kathy in, but she's coming in again. Okay. So I'm gonna keep the screen share on, but not to go to full screen just yet. The way that I want to begin, before I review the day one and day two. So thank you for being live here. I think there is a benefit in being live and absorbed, so you can be sort of accountable for this journey. And at the same time, people who are not able to make live and catching replay, uh, my invitation, if you're catching replay, because often when we do replay, we tend to multitask. I do suggest to really create an environment to focus, because often the topic and the content of, especially this topic is pretty in depth, right? And I know that a lot of people who I attract tends to already have been in sort of some sort of spiritual journey, but I think things land differently, right? And in order for me to help everyone to expand the awareness, it needs to be two-way street, meaning that if I say something, but if people are not sort of listening to with the whole being, uh, it minimizes the ability to influence and expand. So my invitation, especially if you're watching this replay, to minimizing the multitasking and to really even sort of having this um, attitude of taking a note, because whenever I engage in different workshops, I always take notes. It confirms me, right? When the presenter says something and I write something, I'm telling myself twice, and there's a benefit for that. So that's my recommendation. So before we go into day three, which I am so excited about, because this is the heart of what I wanted to convey on this 3 day, which is the reason I'm going to be explaining the reason why we're here, explaining the reason why we're here on Earth. And before we go there, I want to review quickly the first 2 days, right? So we are talking about how can we uncover our worthiness through self-love. And I think I said this on day one, but I want to emphasize this. We're uncovering because it's already within us, right? And we're uncovering because we have a lot of things that we have covered to blind ourselves to be able to see our true nature. So I carefully chose this word uncover. It's not about finding worthiness. It's not about gaining the sense of confidence, because when we uncover, we are already confident and we're already perfectly worthy, right? And how can we feel that sensation that we are perfect and pure and able to do whatever we want to do? I'm not gonna say without any doubt, but minimum doubt, and then smoothly moving through, right? And self-love goes hand in hand with worthiness, because the more you're feeling less resistance of less, what we're talking about and focusing on day one is judgment. Because when you have a certain judgment about ourselves, it almost like goes against loving ourselves, right? The critic, the inner critic. So on day one, we talked about, my intention of day one and the content is to really help people shift their attention from their their feeling in the sense of unworthiness, because people tends to be in that sense and feeling of unworthiness and get trapped there, that I don't know why I'm feeling this way, but this feeling keeps coming up. And I think when you go to like therapy or all that, that's the focus, right? That feeling deep within us that feels like it's trapped there, that's coming from that we're carrying from the past, seems to stay there, right? But I chose to have a different focus on this workshop because I think it's very useful to shift the focus away from the unworthy feeling that you're having into actually how we are seeing ourselves. And on day one, I also talked about the relationship between our thoughts and feelings and belief. We use our mind to think, and the body experiences feeling. And when something is felt long enough, it becomes a state of being, believing about something. And belief, most of the belief, in my opinion, is subconscious. Because whenever we say, oh, I believe in that, right? We often hear that word, right? Oh, I believe in that. I believe in that, right? That I believe in that belief is just another thought, right? So belief tends to, for me, in my perspective, tends to stay at the subconscious level. And when we understand the dynamic between the mind and the body and the thoughts and the feelings and the belief, I am convinced that the gateway is our aware thinking, not the habitual thinking, but aware thinking, the thinking that we can choose, right? So when we are wanting to be worthy, wanting to feel worthy about ourselves, my focus in this workshop is to help people bringing our attention to the judge, not the unworthy feeling that we're experiencing in the body, but how are we seeing ourselves? And when we're able to begin monitoring that judge and begin changing the narrative about ourselves, we can begin influencing that unworthy feeling that the body is experiencing, because our thoughts and feelings goes hand in hand, and we can choose our thoughts and then influence the feeling to begin shifting into more of the expansion. So that was day one. Day two, I talked about there are two selves, right? When we say self-love, we need to clearly understand who is the self. And most of the time, people are trapped into their intellectual self, right? So we think that we are a certain person, looking at the mirror, looking at the outside world, looking at the, Bob often talks about looking at the report card, right? Report card is, when people are in school, they have the grades. When you're in a work environments, you have some sort of the performance work report card, right? So we start identifying ourselves as some sort of result that we are measuring, but we don't want to let that outside result influence the way that we see ourselves, because if we let that influence us and often disempower us, if you're using that as a way to empower us to create something greater, I think we want to take advantage of it. But we want to begin using the power of the mind to create something that doesn't exist in the outside world. So all those identification that happens in our intellectual place, our thinking, is our intellectual self, right? And that is an illusion and dynamic and creative. So when I say illusion, it means that it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist because you're experiencing that, but it means that when you shift your perspective, it changes its quality. So I never say that the body is an illusion, because sometimes people in a spiritual area talked about bodies and illusion, and the only thing that exists is your awareness, right? But nevertheless, those people who are saying that is living in the body that exists. So not illusion in that sense, but when you start seeing differently, it changes. Just like, let's say, if you, this is just like popping up in my mind. If you see two trees in front of you, there's a space in the middle. There's a one space, two trees, right? But you weren't seeing the third trees on the right side that was out of your sight, right? But now you have three trees and you see two space in between, right? So that is the shift in perspective, becoming aware and recognizing what you didn't see before because you are trapped in a certain perspective. So the judge that we have in the intellectual self often is trapped in a certain perspective based on the outside result and outside experience that we can change any way we want to. So that's why it's dynamic and creative. And the other self is the essential self, which is the soul, which is the essence, right? And the two loves. So if there's a two selves, right, the essential self and the creative self, sometimes people call false self, right? The personality self, there must be two loves, right? So the soul self doesn't know how to compete, doesn't know how to feel negative, so it just love just is. And when you come to the identity level, your love becomes either relational and giving receiving, or attached to something and becomes a fear base. So we can experience, as we hear what I'm saying, we can feel and we can understand that there are intellectual self in our thinking mind. And then also when we shift our attention out of our thinking, we can also feel that there's a deeper version of us, right? Eckhart Tolle, who is a spiritual teacher, I think he's very successful. He's spreading his information out in the world, who wrote a book, Power of Now. He referred to this soul self as a deep eye, right? There's a deep eye that is beyond our thinking. And hold on, there's something, somebody's coming in. Beyond our thinking. And if there are two self, there are two loves. Yeah. And when we move through life and when we do things, when we engage in the lifestyle, where are we feeling the sense of empowerment and limitless worthiness? Where are we feeling a sense of lack in the way that we're seeing ourselves? And then, you know, the lack thereof is always in our thinking. I hope we get that, right? And we know that there's a deeper part of us that is perfect and pure in the perfection, right? Bob talks about our spiritual DNA is perfect. And the lack and the sense of feeling not worthy is always in the intellectual self. So what is self-love? When we really understand that there are two self and there are two love, I actually am not gonna define that for everyone, but based on that information, I want you to sort of reconcile and sort of absorb how you want to see that, right? We also talked about forgiveness, and forgiveness goes hand in hand with self-love. And there are, so most of us have something that we want to forgive somebody else, or forgive our mistake or whatever that we did in the past. I mentioned yesterday that letting go of the past and acknowledging what is a half, 50% of the forgiveness. And the second half, in order for the forgiveness to uh, be complete, we need to identify the ideal. What is it? Who is it that we want to become? The reason for that is because our identity is always seeking some identification. So if you let go of the past without replacing with who you want to become, the ideal that we want to accept, the process of forgiveness is like a halfway, but not complete, right? And today, what we want to go to is, what does it mean to accept the ideal, and what does it mean for each and every one of us to have some sort of pain in our life, the psychological, emotional, even physical pain in our life. Why pain exists? Why struggle exists? Why suffering exists? Why there is worry and doubt in the world, right? What if we only had, happy, joyful place? So that is what we're going to be talking about. So I am going to, that was my intro actually. I am going to close the video, and I just want to make sure that it is recording and make it full screen. Okay, welcome to day 3. Day 3 is about awakening the divine essence. And this is a huge topic for me, and I think for a lot of people. And if we're not becoming aware of this topic and living every single day, people will, at some point in their life, hit the wall. There are a lot of people out there who are seeking accomplishment. You know, it's interesting because I was just looking up, I think I can say this. My friend Charles was doing a Facebook Live today, and he was talking about, he was doing a live with the topic of medication versus meditation. And I have been knowing him for a long time. He's, I think, only 26, and I knew him when he was 19. And he's a entrepreneur who is successful in at his age already. And he reconnected with me because I was talking about the topic of the soul. He's very interested in the soul. And in that live today, he was talking about how people are, you know, seeking accomplishment and material gain in the outside world. And but those people tends to have depression and sense of not fulfilling inside. And I was watching almost the entire live because I wanted to hear what he was saying. And I, of course, commented on his post, saying that he's becoming like a Zen master, and I'm glad to see how he's, you know, unfolding. But at the same time, I told him that what he was talking about is basically you're talking about ego versus soul, fear versus love. In the personal development industry, people talk about hustling, people talk about getting things done, people talking about taking action. And when you start focusing on the energy outwards without fully understanding our beingness, which is we're a spiritual being having a physical experience, not the other way around, right? There is going to be some sort of misalignment and incongruency that shows up in life, informing us to turn our attention back to home, which is our spiritual essence. So the way that I see, and when I say this, a lot of people resonate with this, but any symptoms that we experience in life, it could be injury, it could be health issue, it could be relationship issue, it could be not having a fulfilling career, it could be money issue, it could be anything, something that sort of inform us a sort of negative consequence. For me, is always, always, always a manifestation of the lack of alignment with the energy of the soul within. So long time ago, I have come to the conclusion that the foundation of health is in the energy of the soul. And, you know, like for instance, maybe no longer than, I don't know, 5 to 10 years ago, the Western medicine started to pay attention to stress. And there are a lot of degenerative disease that exist today that didn't exist 100 years ago, even though technology is much, much more advanced. And people are experiencing, you know, the greater material world. And there are a lot of people who are being disconnected from their essence. And from a holistic health point of view, when symptoms shows up, whatever the, you know, degenerative disease is, that even Bruce Lipton, who is a cell biologist, talks about many of the degenerative disease come from stress. And what causes us to feel stressful? It's our thinking, it's our perspective in life, and it's our perception that we are focusing too much on the physical material world. And the more the outside becomes loud, well, imagine that you're in a like a rock music club, and the sound is loud and you cannot hear and sense the inside because the noise and the energy outside is so loud, right? And when the material world is so loud, and when we start focusing heavily on that, and I'm not saying to focus on the material world is wonderful. Material world is the dimension that gives us a full experience. We cannot have the experience that we have without the material world. But I think the way that I explained to Charles in the comment was that the reason that people who are wanting to accomplish something and that feeling unfulfilled is because they're approaching life in a wrong order. If you're a spiritual being and having a temporally physical material experience, you cannot feel whole and then fully alive and get to an optimum lifestyle by first focusing on the material, right? We want to address what is in the spiritual dimension and what is the things that we can create from there to manifest in the material world. So what we want to really practice is, it could be, silence, it could be meditation. We do want to practice shutting off the five senses, because five senses are the function of the body to perceive the material world, right? And usually people have this dance between the material world and their thinking, material world and their thinking. And we get busy there and we start losing touch with our feeling and a felt sense and our intuition, because the five senses are so loud and intuition is very subtle, even though it's happening all the time. So I think, silence or meditation, whatever that practice that we can form to really turn our attention inwards and start from there. I feel very rather well, sad and happy at the same time. Like, there are um, a lot of people who are influenced by Tony Robbins. And Tony Robbins is one of the most probably successful motivational speakers in the world, right? And a lot of people who are trained by Tony are talking about the art, the science of achievement and the art of fulfillment. And I heard someone who is in the sort of like a lineage, who said that there's a two bumps that you get successful in whatever you do, and then there's another bump that, oh, I'm not fulfilled. Why? Right? Um, that is because we're approaching in wrong order. We need to come from the spiritual place and then manifest in the physical world. So what I wanted to really focus on today is to really understand why we're doing what we're doing, why the things, the painful experience, and all the stress and all that is happening, those are happening for a reason, because the divine operation and the infinite intelligence is perfect, right? And we have a free will to recognize and to wake up how we can direct our energy, our attention, and our thinking and energy. And that's what I'm going to be talking about. I can't believe that I'm still on the first slide. Okay, let's go. Let's keep going. So, two important practices, I think I'm missing the S, in life is to realize the essential self that I spoke about yesterday, right? There's a self beyond our thinking mind. There's a body that is a vehicle, and the mind is the tool that we can think to direct energy to create the life that we're going to be creating. And deeper than that to realize that there's an essential self that we can observe all of those. And then to align the fluid or the personality self that we can create however we want to into essence. I think there's one more thing here. Yeah. And the purpose of life that I want to claim is the journey back to divine essence. So one of the things that I often say to people is that there are a lot of people in the world who have gone through a difficult situation and they're holding on to something. And the first thing that we need to do is to embrace everything that happened in the past and to realize that wherever you are today, right now, you're in a perfect place. And when you begin embracing the entire history of the past that you have taken, which is actually the reflection assignment day 3, something magic happens. Because if you are resisting that this should have happened earlier, or this shouldn't have happened to me, why this was happening to me, everything was happening from and through us and for us, but life was giving us that lesson for us to begin waking up, to begin creating the intellectual self in an ideal and an optimum manner by recognizing the deeper soul self. And there's a low polarity here in this physical world that you cannot have left without right, up and down, inside and out, outside. And there's a fear and love, and there's a darkness and the light. All the darkness that happens in our life, including not feeling lovable, including not feeling worthy, is there as a signal and the contrast for us to begin working, facing to the other direction, to move into the light. And the two selves are going to be there all the time, right? As long as we are thinking about something, because we cannot function in life without thinking. So, but then the thinking intellectual self, or how we see ourselves in the world, in relationship in the world, needs to come closer, closer and closer and closer to the divine essence. That is the path that we are given. That is the destiny that each and every one of us has to be able to get back to the divine essence. So self-love, personality, and essence, right? And in the personality level, we are constructed in a three-dimensional physical world, right? So we have all the thinking and feeling that we were exposed to and we were influenced by the outside and the genetic. And it's dynamic, and then we have the polarity. So fear is not bad, negative stuff is not bad, as long as we do not live there. And when we understand the greater purpose of life, meaning that we are given that contrast to wake up, to begin creating our intellectual thinking to align with the energy of the essence, and begin reconciling by embracing every single bit of our history, and to be empowered that when we lean into the energy of the infinite, there's always a way that awakening is what we are here to do. So we're here to sort of temporarily go on a sleep mode by getting caught up with all the fear-based negativity in some way, and to wake up. And then how do we wake up? To understand that we're more than the mind, and then to understand that the mind is a tool to shift the frequency energy in the body, and ultimately to align the energy of the ideal as close as possible to the energy of the soul, the essence. And whatever the ideal life that you're seeking is what the infinite universal intelligence wants to express through you. So the more we are in the state of gratitude, the more, and I'm not saying gratitude for the sake of feeling good temporarily. Gratitude, the state of gratitude is who we are essentially. The energy of the soul only knows to be in the state of gratitude, and gratitude without attachment, right? Gratitude uh, for as a sense of like expansion, the lightness, right? Those feelings and the state of being is who we truly are. So to navigate through different challenges and all that that we have in our life, to shift back into that energy is our mission task. So embracing what is the entire history and to be able to create the ideal. So I'm a big on this creating the ideal, as you know, and to recognizing the essence and begin merging the two. The more we strive for being the ideal, the more we get closer to our essence. So I just want to lay it out here to show all the components that we have in life, right? We get popped out in the womb and we start forming personality. We start forming different traumas. We start forming different thinking patterns, habitual emotional home. And one day we think enough is enough and there's more to life, and begin practicing letting go all the things that's not serving us and begin focusing on our ideal. Now, when we as we focus on the ideal, it's really important to open the heart, because the heart is the gate for the soul to be able to express in this physical world. That's how I see it. And when the soul is able to shine through our heart and to be able to create an ideal version of ourselves, and the ideal version of ourselves cannot be defined or determined by anybody else other than ourselves. So what we want to do, and that's why, the desire and what is it that we want. One of the most important questions that someone can ask is, what do you want? And then when I ask people, what do you want? Most people ask me about, what do you mean? And then it's rather interesting, right? What do you want means, what do you want, right? What do you want in life? If you could live exactly the way you want to, how would you like to be living? And that fantasy and that, dreaming and living the life that you dream to be is our ideal. And when you are fantasizing living in that dream version, everything is light, right? Everything is at ease, and you feel happy, you feel joyful, and you're in a loving mode all the time, and then you feel free, a sense of freedom, because that is who we are at the essential level. So to begin shifting the way that we think, and to not like a working hard, right? It's about recognizing who we are and recognizing that we have been identifying ourselves as who we are not, and to shift into the power that can give us by seeing ourselves the light of who we are. And when we are able to let that soul shine through by opening the gate, the heart, and to begin moving towards the ideal by choosing the thoughts to expand our personality, that action and the intention access the infinite universal intelligence, and that power that each and every one of us has is able to express through the individual soul, through the heart, through the mind that we're thinking and choosing being an ideal. Does that make sense? So for me, the spirit, the infinite universal intelligence, penetrate through the soul, through the heart, and through our mind. And when the mind aligns with the heart, so the heart can align with the soul is able to access the infinite. And that's how you awaken your divine essence. When the oneness of all, the infinite, can express through the soul, and then you can demonstrate that energy and moving from that place in the physical material world using the vehicle called body, utilizing the tool called the mind through your thinking that influences your feeling, that creates the belief, that is awakening the divine essence. That is the completion of it. So this single slide that has only 5 words, personality, ideal, heart, soul, and spirit, is the process in which we got thrown into this world without knowing too much of it intellectually, knowing viscerally already, because we already know everything, and going through the journey of having different experience, pain, pleasure, all that, and coming back to the realization that we are one, and begin integrating that energy into the physical world. That process, that entire process, is the journey back to the divine. And I am convinced by now that that is the reason that we arrived on the earth. And it doesn't matter whether you are a lawyer, you are a physician, you are whatever the role that you're playing. Those are just a vehicle and avenue to express our divine expression. And when the intention aligns with these five items, and to begin practicing living from this place, um, that is a true awakening. And I truly believe that whatever that we do, it could be friends conversation, or intimate relationship, or professional service. Every single interaction that we have on this planet Earth is about helping the other person realizing that each and every one of us is on the journey of going back to the divine essence. And the divine essence is the integration of this, if that makes sense. And then see, if I start talking about this, there's no way, and then there's no way that we cannot feel worthy. Does that make sense? There's only pure and perfect worthiness in each and every one of us. The only thing that prevents us from not loving ourselves, not feeling worthy, is our thinking. Okay, so your heart's desire, I don't know why I put that H capital, but I think I wanted to emphasize that. Heart's desire is the vehicle in which you head back to where you came from. So opening the heart is about creating a pathway to connect, to let the soul connect with the infinite intelligence, and to begin merging into the physical material world. I believe this is the last slide. Okay, so the days 3 reflection is, I want you to do this. So take a moment to close your eyes and become one with the feeling when you're living your full divine expression in every area of your life. And if you're uncertain about what that is, you don't need to sort of stress out with it, because stress is the opposite of divine essence. Whatever that is, right? And how do you see you and feel about you as the ideal self? So if you could imagine how the life that you want to be living, and expressing yourself fully with no restriction, and note that the only restriction that can be created is just another thought. How do you feel when there's not a judge? How do you feel when you know deep inside in your gut that this is the reason that you're here, and there is an urge coming from the soul wanting to touch other people? How is that feeling moving into ideal self to be able to connect back to the divine essence? Then identify that feeling, however you want to call it, and then begin living, practicing, live in that feeling every single day. And then maybe if I want to add on something, to begin looking for ways that works for you, that enables you to tap into that feeling. For some people, it's walking in the nature. For some others, listening to the music, silence, whatever that is. And whenever you think that, I understand this, but it's kind of difficult, or I don't know, that's just another thought that you're thinking. So thoughts are potent, and the influence of the thoughts, we get stuck in the thoughts. When something is not working with that thinking, that is not working, and that thinking, uh, prevents us from moving through. So we really want to begin noticing each and every thoughts that we're thinking, and become disciplined with what kind of thoughts we are creating, choosing, and begin doing this practice. I think I have uh, another slide because this is last day. So this is a little recap, right? So day one, we talked about how the mind works. We talked about that self is intellectual, the self is another thought, and the intellectual self is dynamic. Day two, we talked about understand what self-love is, and letting go of the judge is the first half, and embracing you by letting go. And then we want to accept the ideal. This is just a little bit of sum up, right? And then last day today, which is the juice of all, awakening the divine essence, is to recognize the other self, the soul, and aligning the two self, the personality and the soul, so that the infinite can express through you. And whatever the experience that we have been going through in the physical world is designed for us to recognize, going back to that home, which is to align the two self, so we can be a part of the oneness of all. And that is the reason that we came on this earth, whatever that we're doing. Anything else, everything else is secondary. It's a spice, but this intention and the merge of the two self, so we can let the bigger one, the bigger self, with the, which is actually the third self, which is the capital S, can express, is the purpose of and the intention of life, and the reason that we, each one of us, is here. And that is my takeaway from everything that I have done in the past. And the more we entertain this idea and study and remind ourselves to be in this energy, everything else, whatever that's happening, the negativity becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. And because when we are in the energy of the infinite, that is where all the abundance is. Everything in life starts unfolding, because as I said a moment ago or earlier, maybe at the beginning, every single adversity or challenge, difficulty that we come across in life is just symptom, life informing us that we're heading, or we're paying attention to something else, creating a lack of alignment with this awakening the divine essence. So I think this is it. Oh, and one of the things that I want to mention, I know there are a lot of people who have worked with me in the past, and there are a lot of people who have done the last workshop and all that. But whenever I do this workshop, I really want to package with one complimentary chat. So if you would like to connect with me to schedule something to be able to discuss your current individual personal situation and how exactly you can apply what I have been talking about on the last 3 days, please don't hesitate to book a call. And this is not something that, oh, I have done that in the past, so I'm not able to do, or I have worked with me in the past. No, everyone is welcome. It comes with a package. I want to make sure that I am aware where people are in their journey, and to be able to assist you as much as possible. So please book a call if you are called to. That's it. I think that is it. And the last thing that I want to say, I think I'm gonna stop the share because I don't need to share anymore, and turn on this. If you have any question, please ask. you can unmute or type on the chat, or since this is the last day, if you feel comfortable turning the camera on, that's fine as well. And before I forget, so I do also have a self-image transformation workshop that I'll be doing this Saturday at 8 a.m. via Zoom. So that's going to be probably like a 45 minutes experiential. And we're going to be doing two things experiential. And I'm going to do one experiential and get some feedback of what people experience. And then I'm going to do a completely different experiential. In that experiential workshop, you need a mirror. You need a mirror. So that's Saturday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And you will see the post of that on Facebook group and also on the email. I'll send a Zoom link to the email. Okay. Time for question. Anybody, any question or any comments? And the site link to book a call, I'm just gonna post on the chat. So if you are one of those who are interested in, you can copy and paste and save it so you can go there later. Does anybody have any question, any confusion, any insights, or anything that you would like to share? No question? Did I explain perfectly? Or overwhelmed with the information? Or people are thinking?
Quick question, Helene.
Helene, yes.
Okay, there I am. Your last comment, your heart's desire is the vehicle in which you head back to where you came from.
What
Explain that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's a nice dog. So your body is a vehicle, right? And your heart is your body. Now, your heart is a vehicle, but at the same time, your heart is a gateway. It's a gate. I look at heart as a gate, like a door. That's why we call it open the heart, close the heart, right? When the heart is up, how do we open our heart? We open our heart by going to gratitude, going to positive feeling, going to feeling that expands us. And the more we are in that state, the gate, the heart opens. And when the heart opens, we're allowing our essential self, the soul, to show up in the physical world. So when the soul can show up in the physical world, we're also letting the infinite to express through us. So what I meant by the heart is the vehicle to get back home is that aligning our soul with the personality and connecting with the bigger infinite, that state of being is our true home.
Okay, I guess I got confused about where our home or where we came from, but that makes more sense.
Right. You know, like in a health standpoint, people talk about wholeness, being whole. That home, that alignment is the wholeness.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's making more sense.
Yeah.
I'll go back over this again because especially day 2, that was heavy.
Oh, got it.
For me.
Mm-hmm.
This was good today.
Yeah, shorter.
No, not for that reason.
Oh,
It was good because of the content,
okay.
not the timing.
Got it. What made you feel heavy yesterday?
When we were talking about the soul,
Oh,
I was having difficulty comprehending the explanation. It just wasn't syncing with me.
okay.
I did go over it today and it made more sense. And of course you explained it. But it was very heavy talking about that for me.
Okay. When you say heavy, means that difficult understanding intellectually?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. The soul is something so special
Yeah,
and it's a part of us. It is us, but yet it's hard to define and understand for
right,
me.
right.
Okay.
I don't think we are able to understand what soul is. And then I think language is limited. And then when you ask people for in leading a spiritual, community, like if you if you Google super soul with Oprah and soul, she's asking all the spiritual teacher, how do you define soul? Everyone has different answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Anybody else? Anyone? Are we good? Was it heavy? Okay. I take that as no question, and it was clear and easy to understand. So Saturday, I'll be back here at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and you'll hear by email notified. And if you would like to experience the experiential, please join me with the Mira. Right, Mira is gonna be we're gonna be using that. So that is it, everyone. Thank you so much for joining live, and if you're watching replay, thank you. And yeah, just like Eileen was saying, I suggest to sort of repeat a couple of times, because this replay will be available for 7 days. And okay, how do we actually feel worthy? How do we actually begin shifting that judge? By repeating this information over and over. Because when you listen to and hear one time, you're gathering information. And when you start hearing over and over, oh, daylight saving time. Amanda is asking an interesting question. So daylight, is there daylight saving time
Yes.
on Saturday?
Yeah. It's been daylight saving for a while. It's just the time that is at this time of year.
Right. It's 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Amanda, what if that
And
answer?
Pacific Daylight Time too. It's the same thing.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see what you mean. Because we go, yeah. 8 a.m. Oh, not the same thing. Amanda says not the same thing. Is a different time? It's an 8 o'clock that happens in California. This Saturday. Whatever that is. Okay. That is it. So enjoy the reflection, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and have a great evening, and I will see you next time. Thank you.
Good night and thank you.